Have you ever wondered why estates, or some of us call it station wagons or even tourings, are not that popular in Malaysia? I find it a bit sad because these estates, or some of us call it station wagons, and for the sake of this video we call it touring, they're actually really nice cars. And if you follow the Malaysian automotive industry, you would know that SUVs are hugely popular. So much so that it is forcing some car makers to totally abandon big sedans. I'm talking about Honda Malaysia and their discontinuation of the Accord, because models like the CR-V, HR-V and now the WR-V are hugely popular and people just are not looking at the Accord anymore, hence the decision. I find that a bit of a pity because SUVs are great and all, but I think touring models such as the Mazda 6 Touring that I'm sitting in right now have their own unique appeal. And I think when it comes to driving dynamics, the Touring has all of the space that an SUV has to offer, yet has better driving dynamics than an SUV. Heck, it's even safer than an SUV, and I'll explain why later. Hello and welcome to the Piston Show, guys. I'm Keshi Dillon, and as usual, I'll be the host for your video. As usual, before we go any further, a quick acknowledgement of our sponsor, and I want to tell you about their awesome products. I'll be right back. This video is brought to you by Berjaya Sompo Insurance. Get Sompo Motosafe by Berjaya Sompo. The less you drive, the less you pay. It's that simple. Choose from 3 different mileage plans with affordable premiums to fit your driving needs. Perfect for those who drive occasionally. Plus, enjoy extra perks like unlimited towing, 100% special perils, and all driver coverages. Ready to drive smart and save big? Switch to Sompo Motosafe today. Head over to Berjaya Sompo Insurance and start saving now. So I have been driving the Mazda 6 Touring for a couple of days already, and I've grown quite fond of it. I have a small family. Sometimes my parents come and visit, so we kind of need the space. And unfortunately, over the past 1 week, my dad has been in hospital. So we've had a couple of hospital runs where we had to carry stuff and such. And the Mazda 6 Touring has been brilliant. But it's also provided me an opportunity, a window into the psyche of the Malaysian buyer. Why isn't the Mazda 6 Touring more popular? Because it checks all the boxes. Well, first things first, I kind of think that because this is a fully imported model, a CBU unit, it's not cheap. At just above 230,000 ringgit, 230,000 ringgit, it's definitely not cheap. People will just think about the likes of the CX-5 and say, look, I'm just getting just about the same amount of space for cheaper, or even the Mazda CX-8 for cheaper, and you get the height of the SUV, which we know people love. So I think that's the general perception when it comes to the Mazda 6 Touring. But what about wagons? What about, touring models? I personally think that we Malaysians are a superstitious bunch. If you've grown up in Malaysia, if you're born somewhere in the 70s, 80s, perhaps in the early 90s, you know that a lot of the station wagons and touring models, we basically shunned them. We meaning Malaysians. Malaysians basically shunned them because they remind them of hearses, of a hearse. That's right, that humble hearse which all of us are destined to take our last ride in. That silhouette, that estate, that touring silhouette reminds some people of a hearse, and because we are a superstitious bunch and we don't want something that reminds us of death, we basically turn our backs on the humble station wagon slash estate slash touring. So, which is a bit of a pity lah, because these touring models, they're really nice cars, and I feel that they offer you all the benefits of an SUV. And as I said earlier in this video, the one safety aspect that the cars like the Mazda 6 Touring offer is that because it sits so low to the ground like a regular sedan does, it is basically safer than an SUV. SUVs are tall. When it comes to physics, taller cars, when you get into a corner, shit hits the fan, right? And that's why we need a lot of electronics to keep SUVs in check. But not so much with the regular touring cars. I feel these cars drive better, they have better dynamics, better proportions in fact than an SUV. But I can understand the appeal of an SUV. I wish that I was sitting a bit higher. I wish that I had a better vantage point. If you follow my videos on the Piston Show, you would know that I own a Mazda CX-5 2.5 Turbo. And I'm sitting in here and everything looks nice, feels very CX-5-ish, but yet I'm sitting so low to the ground, it kind of is a mind, kind of needs a reprogramming of the mind. So I kind of understand. But after having spent a few days with the Mazda 6 Touring, I feel that Malaysians should, come to terms with the appeal or the benefits of a touring, especially as parents, as family men out there. We should come to terms with all the benefits that a Mazda 6, cars like a Mazda 6 Touring has to offer. Because with such a big boot, a comfortable sitting for 5, this just makes perfect sense to me. The price does not, given I tak boleh lah. I cannot bring the price. But then at the same time, guys, this is an imported model lah. So that's the thing about why touring models are not quite popular. But when I picked up this car, I had a chat with somebody from Mazda who said that, touring models, yes, they're not popular. In fact, when they're brand new, the Mazda Malaysia Bermaz Auto has a tough time selling cars like the touring, like the Mazda 6 Touring. But as soon as they enter the pre-owned department, they fly off the showroom floor. So that means there is demand. That means there are people out there who like touring models. And I salute you. And I completely understand why you wouldn't spend 230,000 on a brand new Mazda 6 Touring. It just doesn't make sense. If this was 180, nudging 190, it would fly. Because it just is such a nice car to look at. It's just a beautiful car. There's no doubt about it. I think the Mazda design language does not need any introduction. They make fantastic cars, right? Fantastic to drive because of Mazda's proprietary GVC system, which basically means that the car handles really well. So, like a corner like this, which is basically a near U-turn, the steering input, you just need very minimal steering input to take very tough corners, which makes the car feel incredibly agile. And the Mazda 6 Touring is not a small car, yeah guys. It's a big car. Like, I really have to stretch to touch the passenger side door. It's a really big car. But the way it handles like it's a hot hatch. And all Mazdas with GVC have that amazing driving character. So that's one. And when you sit down in here, it's just a very nice place to be in. All you Mazda owners, you will find this place to be very, very familiar, because all these buttons, all these dials, the steering wheel, the meter panel, the door panel, everything is familiar. It's from the Mazda parts bin, right? And the quality in here is just top notch. The stitching feels really good. It feels very expensive in here, which is a good thing. And then you get stuff like an 11 speaker Bose sound system. This is a moving club. Excuse me while I pay my dues to the government with this toll. And the sound system aside, you also get wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, which is accessible through this 8-inch infotainment system. And this is the 2.5 Touring, so you get the regular analog digital panel with a small 4 point something inches digital meter panel on the right hand side there. So everything else is analog except for that one dial on the right, which is digital, and you can switch it to give you different types of information. That's great. And then besides that, everything feels familiar. You get dual zone air conditioning systems. You don't, however, get ventilated seats, which I think is a bit of a bummer, but you do get this very smallish sunroof. Everything in here feels really good. And I think I have to make a special mention of the seats, because these are probably some of the best seats in the Mazda. Super comfortable. I'm not sure about this red/brownish leather. Excuse me. It does look good now. It has sort of grown on me. It's not bright red, and neither is it dull brown. It's just somewhere in between. But it looks great. I've come to terms with it. The comfort on the seats, though, are something else. But there are a couple of things that I don't quite like. Maybe just two things that I don't quite like about the Mazda 6 Touring, which I'm going to tell you right now. Hey guys, what are some of the things that you consider when choosing a petrol brand? For me, I make sure that the petrol can keep my engine clean and also give me better mileage. I'm sure everybody thinks about this when choosing a particular brand. With BH Petrol's Infinity RON 95 Euro 4M, you get precisely that. It has special German additives that reduces the amount of deposits that build up in your engine over the long term, keeping it clean. It also has improved friction modifiers that reduces the amount of friction that your engine has to go through, ultimately giving you better mileage and making BH Petrol's Infinity RON 95 Euro 4M the right choice. So the first thing that I think can be better about the Mazda 6 Touring is the fact that at 230,000 ringgit, it doesn't have a powered tailgate. In my books, I just can't accept that. Powered tailgate is something so common these days that cars below 100,000 ringgit are starting to offer it already. At 230,000 ringgit, not having a powered tailgate, for me, it's just not acceptable. Right now, since the tailgate is open, you can see from here that you get ample or storage space, which is pretty much like what you get in an SUV. So as I was saying earlier, I think touring models are the best balance of driving dynamics together with the spaciousness and practicality that you get with an SUV. I just wish this was better. And the other and final thing that I think can be better about the Mazda 6 Touring is the placement of the USB ports. Now, before I get to that, just take a moment to appreciate how comfortable I can be in the 6 Touring. It can be better. It's not 100% comfortable. The seats are really nice, as I've already said that before, but it's not a bad place to be. I could imagine You know, a drive from KL to Penang or probably slightly further, I could get comfortable here, not bad. I just don't want to spend a lot of time over here. But for your kids, for the family and such, it's just ideal. You do get twin air conditioning vents over here, which look like they came off a CX-5, and then this too is basically identical to the CX-5. And now, just like the CX-5, you get your twin USB ports here in your armrest, which two Type A USB ports right over there. But the thing is, when you are with your family and let's say you're going on a road trip and you got 3 kids in here together with you and your wife up front, this is not a very practical place. But as I said earlier, I have a CX-5 as well. So what I usually do is I just put in the cables, close it, and then you have cables sticking out over here, which is not very practical. And if the person sitting in the middle is a feisty one, you can imagine the arguments that are going to happen in the car. That's the last thing you want during a road trip. So powering the 6 Touring is an engine that you'll find in the CX-5 2.5 non-turbo version. This is practically the same engine, a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder engine making 192 horsepower and 258 Newton meters of torque. I kind of like this engine because I find it to be a very nice balance of power and efficiency. Power is not that... The figures will tell you that the power is not that great, but it will comfortably cruise at about 140, 150 kilometers per hour. No dramas, the interior remains refined. So I think it suits the character of the car. It has a top speed of 219 kilometers per hour, but curiously, the sedan version of the Mazda 6 tops out at 223 kilometers per hour, which not surprising lah. So this is practically a heavier car. In terms of powertrain, it is basically identical. It sends power to the front wheels via a 6-speed automatic transmission. I got no issues with this powertrain. I also think that it's incredibly refined. I shared the same comments when I picked up the non-turbo version of the latest generation Mazda CX-5 2.5, for Malaysians at least. And I managed to see a fuel consumption figure of about 10.5 kilometers per litre, which is quite impressive. So when I picked up the car, the 62-litre fuel tank was full and I had a range of slightly over 500 kilometers. And I'm still just at half tank. That was last Friday, I think. Not bad. I'm quite impressed in terms of the refinement and practicality and efficiency of the powertrain. So that's it then, guys. My impression of the Mazda 6 Touring. I find it to be incredibly practical. I love the way it drives. I love the sitting position, in fact. And as I've said earlier, the dynamics of the Mazda 6 Touring just make a lot of sense. You get the spaciousness of an SUV, and yet the practicality of an SUV together with the driving and handling characteristics of a sedan. For me, that's a holy grail. I understand that at 230,000 ringgit, it just absolutely does not make sense. But if you're ever watching this and you find a Mazda 6 Touring on the pre-owned market for maybe 150, 160,000 ringgit, I'll tell you this, it's an incredibly nice car to own and drive. Mazdas are not that much more expensive to maintain, and the 6 Touring offers you practicality and economy, efficiency, which an SUV sometimes will struggle to match. And it comes with a complete ADAS suite as well, incredible armada of safety systems. It has the refinement levels that you find in this car is just mind-blowing, and I really like that 11-speaker Bose sound system. I think this just offers a lot of convenience. It's just a pity about the price. However, in a couple of days, I'm returning this to pick up the Mazda 6 Sedan, and I can't wait to see how that feels instead. The sedan is 10,000 ringgit more expensive at 240 plus thousand ringgit. Yeah, it's another imported model. It's very expensive as well, but I'm going to reserve my judgment until I drive it, of course. But for now, the Mazda 6 Touring, incredible. If you ever find it on the pre-owned market, go for it. As usual, thank you for watching. Do consider subscribing.